Welcome back to Comic Book History, Episode 11. This one I'm going to talk about the Justice League spin-off books prior to the relaunch in 1997 as JLA. Now, the previous episode I talked about Justice League America title, not the spin-off books. Yeah. This particular era was the spin-off books basically consisted of books like Justice League Europe, Justice League Task Force, Qurterly, Extreme, Extreme Justice. I think that was it. I think that was all the spin-off titles I could think of that came out during this period of time. Europe was simply like, it was sort of a carbon copy of Justice League, Justice League / Justice League International / Justice League America. Well, it's a similar kind of style of storytelling, except it took place in Europe. For the first couple years of the series, it was set in Paris. Then they moved to London, which they were there for like a year. And then after the Breakdowns crossover, they were moved to a castle in the countryside in Europe and in the UK, where they remained even after the series was renamed to Justice League International, where at that point was canceled up to 67 issues. Yep. I should point out that here's the weird thing about this series. A majority of the members were in fact American. Yeah, there's like one or two people who actually were from Europe on this team. Red Rocket, who was one of the founding members of Justice League International, he was moved over to Europe because, well, just like Europe. The Crimson Fox, who was a French superhero, she's part of the team. And I think that's it. Yeah, and they had this weird issue where apparently the French lawyers were told that the Justice League Europe none of them knew French at all, so they took French classes with the Injustice League. Not kidding. And the Injustice League was made up of C-list villains. No joke. People like Clock King, Count Vertigo, Major Disaster, Big Sur. Yeah, I'm like, really? So they have a group called the Injustice League, and it's made up of C-listers. Though this was later retconned, this was not the original Injustice League. This was the second one, thanks to a Silver Age one-shot retcon. That there was one prior to this one that was consisted of A-list villains. Yep. People like Penguin, Catwoman, and they were summoned by an alien named Agburgo the Conqueror, I think his name is. Yeah. So, yeah. And originally, the writers for the series was Keith Giffen and Jay DeMatteis for the first 11 issues. Though Jay DeMatteis left at issue 11, he came back for issue 13. But for pretty much from issues like 12 and 14 to about, I think it was 34. Excuse me. Yeah, 34. Yeah, I think it was 34. I actually think it might have been 32. Gerald Jones was the writer, and then after the Breakdowns crossover, Gerald Jones was the sole writer of the series up until the series cancellation. As far as I know, I think Ken McGuire was the original artist in this book for a few issues, but he was most noteworthy for doing the original title that spawned this one. And the first issue's cover is, simply put, it's the first issue, Justice League number 1's cover, just replaced with different superheroes. That's simply the way you look at it. Of course, there were a few other spin-off groups, like there was the Justice League Task Force, initially assembled by Martian Manhunter, with Nightwing on the team for a few issues. It's simply put, just a one-shot. Initially, was supposed to be the way the story went is that they recruited for one mission only. But since that mission was a huge success, the team stayed on permanently. Martian Manhunter was the only one who actually stayed on throughout the whole series, all 37 issues. Characters like Gypsy, the Ray, and Triumphant were actually in a good chunk of the series. Gypsy having the second highest amount of appearances in the series, mainly because she was associated with the Martian Manhunter during their days as part of just like Detroit. The series did go through a few different writers, people like Daniel O'Neil, Michael Jan Fredman, who also wrote Dark Stars at this point, Peter David, but the guy who stayed on for pretty much most of the series was Christopher Priest, the guy who's currently doing Deathstroke right now. He pretty much did the whole series, like right after like issue 20. He pretty much did the rest of the series himself, and he had the series closely tied into what was going on in the pages of The Ray, which was another book he was writing at that point. And just by sheer coincidence, both books ended the same time. Yep. There was also just like Qurterly, which was a anthology book, which was written by a variety of different writers. Like the first issue, which was entirely written by Keith Giffen and Jay Nemadius. There was an issue written by Mark Waid, which the story he wrote for that one particular issue is collected in one of the Mark Waid Flash trades. The first issue was noteworthy for introduction of the conglomerate, basically a group of corporate-sponsored superheroes led by Booster Gold, and the cover was once again a reimagining of Justice League #1. Simply put it that. There was another issue that they did where it pretty much reunited the Charlton heroes, almost all of them except for Peacemaker and the Question. Yeah, with the exception of those two, they pretty much threw in almost all of them. The cover looks like it was very heavily inspired by Mike Mignola, but I could not find a credit for the cover artist that particular issue. The series ended after 17 issues. Like the name suggests, it came out every 4 months, so that means 17 issues released over a period of over 4 years. It was a really good series. From what I remember reading about it, I read it online. I didn't read the entirety of it online. I read most of it online, but I read some of the issues actually individually. But I gotta say, this was a really good idea for them to do. Basically, give a spotlight to characters who weren't getting much spotlight in the main book, basically, and also who didn't have their own solo books at this point. So why not? In the final issue of the series, they killed off the character General Glory, who had been introduced toward the end of. I think he had been introduced about 2 years into the whole JLI franchise of books. Yeah. He actually died in the last issue. Very tragically how he died. Died peacefully. Trying to think, there wasn't any other Justice League titles that came out at this point. I think. I don't think so. Oh, Extreme Justice, which had formed after the events of Zero Hour, a book that had terrible artwork. I mean, good God, I've read Extreme Justice. The artwork is atrociously bad. The only thing I found interesting was the stuff with Monarch. The series was just boring, and the group themselves never had a base operations on the entirety of the whole series. Yeah, their original base operations was destroyed in the first issue, and they never got an official base operation. It just basically people from the Justice League America book, led by Captain Atom, and they call themselves Justice League, not Extreme Justice, where they just wander around, just involved with government conspiracy, stuff like that. It was not a good series. I wouldn't be surprised though if Linkara basically reviewed the first issue on Top the Fourth Wall. Hopefully people get a lot of requests to him review the first issue, because, well, someone did give him the entire 18-issue series. Maybe he could do, I don't know, maybe he can talk about as one of his regular reviews. It's not a bad idea to do. I mean, it might have one more series for him to do, but it's not a bad one to do. And plus, he gets a lot to complain about. I mean, the only one, it's probably like one of the few titles that actually could last for a period of time aside from Youngblood. Yep. Let me think. Is there anything else? Oh, I should also mention Justice League Task Force was involved with 2 crossovers. I had a couple issues involved with Nightfall as part of the Search storyline. Excuse me. And those issues written by Daniel O'Neil. Also, Bronze Tiger joined the group for a few issues. Yeah. Task Force was actually a really good series. Despite the fact about halfway through the series they said to have all the characters wear uniforms, which I thought was weird. Something that Alpha Flight did after issue 100 for some strange reason. I have no idea why. But overall, the Justice League spin-off books, all of them except for Extreme Justice, were really good. None of them were bad series. With the exception of Extreme Justice, that was horrible. But yeah, that's all I really want to talk about when it comes to the Justice League spin-off books that came out during the period of time with Justice League International. Alright, so that's it for this episode. Next episode, I'll talk about JLA. Eventually, I'll talk about the X-Men books and more. More so to talk about in the future. I'll probably talk about the X-Men books probably after I finish talking about Justice League. Okay? But until then, I will see you there. Bye.